Still Star Wars, but I don't know if I'm not feeling great about these, Kiko, because this is the Clone Troopers and BARC Speeder, right? And I want to bring these up because look, I admit, again, I'm not the biggest Clone Wars guy. But my question is, in regards to these troopers, for one, I mean, what are your overall thoughts about them? But two, do we really need these? I'm just thinking in the market that we have right now, this was announced obviously a while ago. So things were different, perceptions were different, so forth, right? But in the market we have right now, everything's a little saturated. There's so many options. Space is getting more limited for more collectors, I feel, even myself, right? For all of us. And then you got this big ass speeder and more clone troopers. I, this could go one of two ways, in my opinion. One, they sit forever because they made too many of them, or two, they don't sit at all because they made very few of them because no one really pre-ordered it. So I don't know, Kiko, what are your thoughts on these? Do we really need these? Because these are space killers, despite them looking pretty cool. What do you think?
I've never been more uninterested in a release than this. And it's not just the fact that it's more 501st, because talk about doing another division or battalion at some point. I mean, we have just got nothing but blue 501st troopers ever since they started doing clone troopers. So getting a little bit long in the tooth on that. With that being said, okay, now we have a vehicle again. And I already told you with the speeder bikes, unless you have the right place to put them, vehicles, and I just did a video on this, vehicles are a tough get, honestly. And right behind me are there we go. Right behind me are the only real vehicles that I have, but they're actual cars. Okay. This is just a really big waste of space unless you have the spot to already put it, because it's not going in a DTOF. You need to light it well. And then to accentuate this even more, you can get the speeder, but then you can get the sidecar to go along with it. And it's get even bigger at that point. And to me, for one, I think it's boring. Two, I think it's too big. Three, I think it's a little bit just too basic at this point. And I don't need these just army building pieces at all. Now, here's the thing I would say. If you're a clone army builder at this point, sure, throw them on in there, keep army building, do what you got to do. But for me, I've decided, and I understand that there is, a named clone here, with Apo, but I'm not doing any more of just the generic clones. I have too many of them at this point, and they're all at this point really repetitive. I know they're clones, go figure, but I only want the named ones and the ones that come with head sculpts, honestly, because that's where you can differentiate them, and to where, especially if it's a different head sculpt, whether it be Jesse with the big tattoo on his face, all the Bad Batch figures, obviously, because they have different head sculpts and they're unique. But I'm kind of cloned out at this point, man. And I think these are going to sit longer than the speeder bikes do, because I thought
Yeah.
everyone wanted the Scout Trooper because that's a really cool look, and to get like a speeder bike, and those are sitting everywhere. I thought the Blurg was cool, and those are sitting everywhere. This is cool, but it's going to be sitting everywhere. And I think this will make Hot Toys take a step back and be like, do we really want to do vehicles anymore? No one's buying them. They're
Right.
hard to display. And I know, last thing I'll say is that, the Jazz Inc. Snow Speeder is out there shipping, and that thing is fucking massive. Vehicles are big. Like 6-scale figures are big in general. You start adding things that they ride in, it gets out of control. And I've said it before, for all those people saying Mando N1 cruiser coming soon, not coming, man. It's not coming.
Kiko, I'm starting to actually believe you, and I think I actually might be with you on this one because the more I kind of see what the market is doing right now, and I'm looking at what's selling and what's not selling, and the amount of space and income that people are willing to dedicate to these figures nowadays, like you said, vehicles are hard to display. They just are. They take up a lot of space, a lot of real estate. And even with this BARC speeder, right? Even if you're not taking up a ton of depth, you're taking up that width and that length, right? So that's a factor here you have to factor in for most collectors. You could have that, or you could have maybe 3 to 4 figures. So, and that's the decision that you're going to have to make at some point. And that's why I don't have the tumbler right now. If I had infinite space, I would buy the
Yeah.
tumbler and I would
And
display it.
usually vehicles are very fragile, especially bikes
Yeah.
and things. Talk about the Bat Pod, talk about speeder bikes. They're very fragile and very finicky. And to me, like, unless it's a massive car like the Batmobile or something like that,
Right.
I just don't think the speeders are worth it or something like that. And I said
Yeah.
this in my other video about vehicles. Like, Star Wars has some incredible designs, but outside of speeders, what are you going to make that's Star Wars other than a speeder? And I'm just done with speeders. I don't need 50 speeders at all.
Right. Right. Yeah, and it's interesting, dude. I mean, and it could be one of those where, I mean, maybe do people do one. I mean, I'm seeing some comments. People are saying it's sold out everywhere. So the one thing too that I always want to stress with people is this: honestly, in today's market, sold out means shit, nothing. Like it means absolutely nothing because because the market, I can just tell you, it doesn't care, right? So basically, for example, I can give you an example of that. Ahsoka, right, has been sold out on Sideshow for a really long time. Comic Concepts can't sell theirs. And people know that Ahsoka sold out, and supposedly people
Talking about the
want it,
Mando
right?
Ahsoka?
Yeah, Mando Ahsoka, right? So it's part of those situations where I think some people don't realize just because it's sold out doesn't mean that people really care that much to go pay for it. Like it just means that maybe so little people cared for it that it sold out quickly. Cad Bane, I don't know. It's hard to say. Maybe it's low batch, maybe it's not. I don't know. These clones, though, people love their clones. I'm not going to say people don't like their clones. I'm not going to say they're bad figures because there are a lot of collectors out there who absolutely love clone troopers and they have amazing displays with a ton of clones, which we'll talk about that general idea of collecting soon. But I think that's something too that we need to realize too, that sold out doesn't necessarily equal popular, and sold out doesn't also necessarily equal that people are willing to pay over retail or above retail to get it. So that's because I can just tell you, like when you're trying to sell things on the secondary market, I have had plenty of figures that have been sold out for a long time, and I did not get anywhere close to retail for them. So that I think is something that people might need to realize too. So yeah, it doesn't sold out is something, but it doesn't necessarily mean that maybe sitting isn't the correct term, but as far as demand, that might be the better way to look at it, right? Um, but I don't know. It's a cool figure and it's a cool vehicle. I'm starting to wonder, Kiko, you make a really valid point about the quality of vehicles, right? Not the quality of vehicles, but the longevity of vehicles and the practicality of vehicles for these businesses. Are they going to stop making them? Because I don't know, man. I don't know. Times are tough, and I don't know if we're gonna. I'm starting to think I'm with you that I don't think the N1's happening. I just think in
I mean,
today's
because you're not
game,
just making vehicles and
yeah,
figures, you have to then design boxes and think about what the
yep,
shipping cost is gonna be for a box that size.
yep,
And the math ain't mathing if in some areas for me, in my opinion. I may be wrong completely about that. Like I said, some people are saying, they're sold out everywhere. Maybe they did also make 10 of them because they're like, I'm not going to sit there and go too deep onto this line. And maybe they did only make 10. I don't know. But for me personally, I'm cloned out. No more vehicles. I got all the ones that I want.
yeah.
And so
And these are dope.
at
I
the same
like the
time.
color scheme, but it's just I'm just
Yeah.
not a
Well,
clone
I'm
guy. So
tired of the blues.
yeah,
I want something else at this
yeah. I
point,
get I'm not quite the audience. I do agree with that comment, but I do think that just thinking about what people are actually going to buy nowadays, it's interesting. I'm not picking this up, but I'm happy for the people that are, right? So, and they look good. They look good, and the ship looks good. I don't know if have I had a Hot Toys vehicle before? I don't know. I guess I have. Yeah, I've had the Game Toys bike that I really really love,
You
but
could have had the tumbler, Will. And I know there's a
yeah,
space underneath Drogon where you could put the tumbler.
I could, but dude, it would be like dwarfed in there in that cabinet. But
Yeah.
yeah, I could put a lot. That's for statues probably, but yeah, there will be room there.